Can your favorite adult beverage be part of your investment portfolio? Joining us now is wine expert Atul Tiwari to explain how to use wine as an alternative asset class in your investment portfolio. Atul, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Sybil.
This is a really interesting topic that has piqued my interest. Now, my favorite adult beverage would be wine. And so that's what we're going to talk about here today. How can people use wine as an investment?
Well, there's a number of ways to do so. One would be to do it yourself, which would be to purchase cases of wine, store them, and then at some point try to find a way to sell your wine. Another way is that globally there are funds available that specialize in investing in fine wine. And thirdly, you could invest with a company that will match your goals and objectives with actual cases of fine wine that they would then be able to buy and sell on your behalf.
So you let the experts do the buying and the selling, and most importantly, the storage. It might be tempting to have all that wine at home and not let it actually appreciate in value because you decide to have a drink once in a while.
So that would be tempting.
What are the attributes of a fine wine? Like, what makes a bottle of wine worth something?
Right. Well, we estimate that about 1% of all of the wine made every year around the world is investment grade. And a number of factors go into making a wine investment grade. It could be critic scores, the producer, historical price appreciation, the vintage quality. But the two most important factors are scarcity. So if there isn't much of it made, the demand is going to result in price appreciation, and longevity, because you want wines to be able to age for 20 to 30 years and also give them a chance to appreciate in price over that time.
So scarcity would be some of these higher end wineries that maybe have a select grape and only do small batches. So there's not a lot produced, but it's very high quality. Is that what you mean?
That's right. Yeah. It's about how many cases are produced by that producer of that wine in that vintage.
Now, longevity, I can see why that's important, because you buy it, you hold it. If it turns after 5 years, that's a really short window. And we know from Investing 101, the longer your time horizon, the more ups and downs you can go through and the more returns you should make at the end of the day.
Absolutely. And it also gives a chance for that supply and demand equation to work, because over time, the fine wine bottles from that vintage will get consumed, and there will be demand that continues to grow for those wines.
So what type of rate of return can people earn on investing in wine?
Returns historically have been pretty strong. And if you look at the last 15-year period, on average, on an annualized basis, they could run from 10 to 12%. So a pretty good historical track record of returns.
And how correlated are the returns on wine compared to the equity markets in general?
Actually, returns on fine wine are very uncorrelated to returns in the equity markets. And in addition, fine wine exhibits low volatility. It's a great hedge against inflation. And it has what we investment geeks call a low downside capture, which means that when equity markets crash, wine will barely budge. And in some cases, you'll see wine appreciate.
Now, when people are going to invest in wine, there's also some downsides. What would some of those be? What's the words of caution for people before they invest in wine?
It's important that you ensure, number one, that the wine that you're investing in is in fact real wine. In other words, it's not fraudulent. And so you have to be careful in terms of what you're buying and where you're buying it from.
It's not dyed water, in other words, corked
Correct,
in a bottle?
Yes.
It's the real thing?
That's right. And that it's been stored properly, of course. Transportation is important. The insurance that is placed over the bottles, also important. So those would be some of the things. And then, of course, if you're investing with the manager, the long-term track record of that manager and their discipline in their investment process.
Right. And then the liquidity factor, how easy and quickly can you get your money back out of your investment if you wanted to?
Well, that would depend on the size of the portfolio or the size of the amount you're hoping to exit. Basically, wine is a reasonably liquid investment, and there are many places where wine can be sold if you're exiting positions. And we would say that would, depending on the size of the portfolio, it could be 4 to 8 weeks. So definitely something to keep in mind as an investor.
Longer term thinking, but Atul, this is fantastic information. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks again for having me, Sybil.